So we've had 5 rounds of the Prem. I've done 5 big review videos where I go through every single game, watch a lot of rugby. So I want to do a bit of a take of where these teams are out and who might win this thing, who's looking good, where are their Achilles heels, that sort of thing. So let's get stuck into it, starting with top of the pile at the moment, Northampton Saints. Now Saints, to me, you think attack. When they get going, they are the best attacking side, and I think that is true. As a team, coordination-wise, it's fantastic. Their quick ball is amazing with Mitchell and Finn Smith, England's 2 half-backs. I think their best 2 half-backs, really running the show. And they've brought in a little bit of extra depth when Finn Smith isn't there. Bellew is a good fly half as well from France. They're trying to get McParland up to speed. So they've got a bit of depth, but maybe not a huge amount of depth. So when they're on, when their personnel are all there, they can wipe sides away, but also they can switch off a little bit. They can be a little bit of a soft underbelly. They've tried to get a bit more physical edge with the massive Van der Mesch from South Africa, who when you're attacking is an absolute beast, but it doesn't really help too much when you're defending because he's very slow getting in position. So we have seen Northampton leak a lot of penalties, a lot of tries when they're under pressure. I'm not saying it's Van der Mesch's fault at all, but I'm just saying in general the side can leak tries. And early on in the Prem we saw them have big leads, then get pegged back. I mean, they drew the first one. The first 2 games incredibly close, only won by 2 against Gloucester. They only just about beat Newcastle, actually. They weren't convincing there. Just about beat Leicester Tigers, just about beat Saracens, but they're scoring a stack of points. So are they fortunate? No, I wouldn't say fortunate because they've scored so many great tries, but they're right on that edge. They could definitely lose some games as well. And if they lose a few players from their best team, they could drop down a little bit. So top 4, probably, but they're not guaranteed. They don't have that huge depth and they don't grind out games. That's not really their style. When they get their full team, and this is just an example team from round 5, I mean, it's a brilliant lineup there, starting 15 and a little bit of depth there on the bench as well. It's brilliant. Like I said, Mitchell, Smith, Dingwall, Hutchinson, Freeman, and George Hendy when he's fit, and he's not always fit, is fantastic. You know, one of the best backlines in the division, if not the best. And we've got some really good ball players there in the pack as well. Coles and Pollock obviously standing out. Pearson needs to be fit and firing, and he's not always fit again. So it's a really good team. They're going to be there and thereabouts, and they're going to be the most entertaining team, I think. But are they going to win the thing? I wouldn't say yes right now. On their day, they can beat anyone, but also they can be beaten by almost anyone as well. Then on to last year's champions, Bath. They're in second place at the moment with 4 wins out of 5. Not massively convincing wins. I mean, they beat Harlequins fairly well, but still Harlequins scored 31 points against them. And you look down all their fixtures, they're not winning by a lot, and they're not losing by a lot when they lost to Leicester as well. Yes, the big score against Bristol looks good, but Bristol were very competitive for a lot of that game, and it went on for ages, that game, into the 96th minute. So a little bit misleading potentially there. And they look a little bit lost in their game plan, even though they've won 4 games, so strange to say. But compared to last year, their flow and attack is not there. Their attack is very one-dimensional at the moment, but they have the players. I mean, you look at this example team from round 5, and it's a stellar team. I've said it's the best. I think it is the strongest squad in the Prem. You can see that from this lineup. And if you play basic rugby with the quality of these players, especially coming off the bench with Underhill, Jomu, Barbary, Will Stewart, Tupelutu's amazing as well. Look, you've got great players coming off the bench to replace great players starting. And if you play simple rugby, you're going to win more games than you lose. But they're definitely not in their flow. Defensively, they're a bit better, but attacking-wise, not so. And Lee Blackett's obviously left. They've got a new system coming in. I'm not sure it's going to be quite as good, but are they going to be top 4? Well, yeah, they're going to be top 4 because their team is too good. The players they have are too good. You know, Spencer, Russell ruling the back line there, and they've got firecrackers out wide. Lawrence, Thokanasiga, Carreras in at 15, and so much depth in that front row and back row, especially where they can bring on Will Stewart for Thomas Dutoy. They can bring on Underhill and Pep and Barbary and Ted Hill. It's just such a great squad. So they're going to be top 4. Are they going to win the thing? Well, I think there's a really good chance, but they're going to have to improve. And I think they will, because they definitely haven't hit top straps yet, but they are still 4 out of 5. So that's pretty good. So a definite threat considering they're not at their best. Then on to Exeter Chiefs, who look like they've turned it around. And I was a little bit sceptical at the beginning of the year to think if they would. Yes, they had better personnel, but it's happened. I think they have turned the corner. And, really credit to Rob Baxter, who obviously had to go in as a hands-on coach. He was going to step away. It didn't work. They, had to part their way with a couple of coaches, and they've rebuilt their side. Yes, they have brought in some quality from abroad. Then Nicky Towers come in and look really good. Obviously, Tom Hooper's a really hard-working blindside forward, but they turned the corner before those guys had arrived as well, to be fair. And it's partly due to the new generation just coming of age. Greg Fizzolau is a bit stronger than last year. Ethan Roots is not a new player, but he seems to be revitalised. The belief is back. Jenkins was always putting in the hard work. They'd signed Dweber as well, who's a brilliant hooker, just a bull of a guy. And even players like Seo and Asefa Scott, the props, who were looking a bit slow and ponderous, I thought, last season, are looking a lot better. So they're really coming into their own. They've got a bit of depth there as well. Second row Zambanin, I think, is a really good player. You've got Ross Vincent, who is a fantastic international back rower. Emmanuel Fawabusu is back and fit, and that makes a huge difference. Josh Hodge at fullback makes a difference. Brown Bampo when he's fit on the wing as well. So it's a really great team. Slade, of course, playing great rugby. And that was a big change as well, getting Skinner back to 10. Not because Skinner is the best player ever, but they need a 10 to play 10 so Slade can do his thing at 13 as well. And Skinner is back confident. He's he's playing well, he's physical, he's got decent skills. You leave the kicking to Slade, so that's much better. So they're going to be there or thereabouts. They're going to be kind of mid-table to top table. Are they going to get in that top 4? I don't know. Really, really close. If you push me, I say maybe they just miss out, but if they can keep their best players fit, Icky Tao, Dweber playing lots, then yeah, maybe they could get there. They're going to be close. Now, Saracens are a really powerful squad. On paper, they look top 4, but they have been in and out of form already in this Prem. They were unconvincing against Newcastle, then a big win against Bristol, then they got beaten by Harlequins, which must have really hurt, then they smashed Sale, and then Northampton beat them, so they're up and down, but the quality is there in this team. I haven't quite seen the flow in attack yet. I mean, they've scored some good tries straight from set piece, but haven't put in that amazing flow, front foot ball, quick ball, zipping it around quite yet. We saw them go to the air a lot because they've got a new player there, winger Kalore, who's amazing, and other players like Malins who are good in the air. So they're definitely building something. I can't quite see the blueprint quite yet, but they're probably going to get there. Itoje's back for a couple of games. That makes a difference. And Tom Willis is still there this year, although not next year. So they've got a big, brutal pack that can beat you up, can out-scrummage, out-maul you. That helps. They need a bit more flow in the back line. Farrell still maybe finding his way, and obviously he's a little bit slow in there as well, so players have to play around him. So you've kind of got that older centre partnership of Farrell and Tompkins, but they're also introducing some younger players into that back line. Charlie Bracken getting his starts at 9. He looks the real deal, as does Kalore and Jack Bracken, but they're going to take time to bed in. Malins is back at 15, but he's not quite the player he used to be. So there's some strengths and there's some vulnerabilities in that squad, and they need to get into their rhythm a little bit better, being a bit too up and down, but they're so powerful, they're going to be there or thereabouts. If they weren't top 4, it would be a massive underachievement yet again because they missed out last season. So I'm saying yes, top 4, winning the thing. Potentially, if they get it together, they're that powerful. Now, Leicester Tigers in at 5th there are going to be very hard to beat, but they're not all conquering at the moment. They can grind it out. They can be quite one-dimensional. Occasionally, they can open up. Yes, they've got James O'Connor at 10, who looks a bit more attacking, but their style is very similar, so I'm not sure he's the best style fit, although he is a classy player. Of course, we've seen some really good long passes and flips and things like that. They can put together a power midfield of Cater and Parisi, or they can have a more ball player there in Woodward, so they're going to have to decide their style. But the back 3 is firing really nicely. Hassel, Collins, Radwan, Stewart absolutely top quality, and Radwan and Hassel-Collins aren't even needed by England, which is amazing really. So they've got international wingers who aren't even playing for England. Nicky Smith is playing great. Hayes is obviously an international. Blamire is there or thereabouts for England. So it's a really strong pack. Chesham, of course, Liebenberg's hard as nails. Cracknell, Ilione. It's a really good team, and if they put together a bit more flow, a bit like Saracens, I think they can go a long way. At the moment, maybe a little bit too one-dimensional to really crack the top of the league, but they're going to be very close if they get it right, and there's some scary power there as well. Now, we know Bristol Bears have got this well-publicised injury crisis. A lot of their first-choice backline is out. Randall would start, McGinty would start as 9 and 10. No, you haven't got Reece Samet, you haven't got Ibitoy on the wings, but they do seem to have used this in their favour. Yes, they're playing a little bit more pragmatic at times, and then opening up into full Bristol chaos and still scoring some good tries, but also happy to slow it down. Their maul's really good these days. And then when they get players back, I think they'll be in a better place actually, because they've definitely seen it as a backs against the wall sort of rear guard, and these 3 victories have been massive victories. I mean, starting off beating Leicester was huge, then Exeter as well, another big home win. They were, blown away by Bath in the end, but like I said, that was fairly close. Beating Gloucester away, another big win. So they're getting the wins. It's not like they're miles off their pace. And then when they get a few players back, and they're not actually too far away in the forwards anyway, I think they could be in a place to make a charge on that top 4 and open up a bit more, particularly as the weather gets better next year as it gets into the spring. So I don't think they're in a bad place. I think maybe their injury crisis is not overblown, but maybe used as an excuse, if you like, or a reason to kind of get fired up. No, it's us against them. Now on to Sale with just 2 wins, and those 2 wins against the 2 weaker sides in the tournament. Sale beating Gloucester and beating Newcastle, and losing to the rest, but good signs in the last round when they nearly came back and beat Leicester. But they have struggled a little bit, and it does look like without the Curries, without Dan de Preer, their pack isn't quite as good as maybe we thought it is in depth. Anyway, they've got Woodman there, Dugdale, who are decent players, but not quite the same. They've had to kind of mix around a little bit. Maybe Apoko Fajor hasn't quite kicked on. Harper maybe isn't quite as good as I thought he would be at this point. Cowan Dickey's been a bit hot and cold, particularly with line-out throwing, so the pack's not quite as dominant as I thought it might be, and they need those Curries back and de Preer back as well. The backline is pretty much where it needs to be there. We've got Ford obviously pulling the strings. Quirks come in and look really good at 9. Matty White's been the big man at 12, which has worked. De Preer plays every game anyway. Roebuck. So they've got pretty much everyone there. They could do with Carpenter back. With a full choice team, they could definitely challenge, but definitely haven't had a great start to the year, and they're going to need to get a lot better. Now, what do you say about Harlequins? Inconsistent, a bit flaky. Sometimes can play great stuff, but sometimes can get blown away and look like they really don't fancy it too much, like when they played Exeter away. But then they can change up and played a massive kicking game against Saracens, which worked on that day. Was it a one-off? It looks a little bit like it, because then Saracens played a big kicking game themselves in the next round and did great as well. So they probably had a bit of an off day there, did Saracens. Yes, they've beaten Newcastle very nicely in the last round, but Newcastle are pretty rubbish at the moment. So it's not looking fantastic. If you look at the back line for Harlequins, it's made for, dry weather, quick weather rugby there. It's a very small back line, a lot on the shoulders of Marcus Smith, who I think is actually playing pretty well. Isgrow, is a tough character, but he's quite short. Green small. Evans, Northmore, they're not big centres, if you like. Evans is a 10 anyway. They've used Benson and 12, who's a 10 as well. They probably lost their biggest backline talents in Will Joseph to Gloucester. Then their most promising hooker, Jabulu, has left, so something's not quite right at Harlequins. The pack is okay, Bax is a good player. You've got Kenningham there, who's in the England squad now. Evans is always sniffing around. They could do with Don Brandt back, but it's not the best. So hooker-wise, isn't particularly good. Walker Turner haven't impressed particularly. They need Cunningham South there as well for sure. So if they have everyone available, they can definitely be a match for most. But if they have a few unavailable, the depth doesn't seem to be there, and there's something a little bit wrong in the club at the moment. Like I said, the balance of the back line, they need a bit of power. They don't look like a top 4 club at the moment. Let me know if you agree. Then let's talk about Gloucester, who are a very strange club. Of course, they changed their style completely. I mean, they changed their pitch to an artificial pitch, which which, lent itself to running rugby, and then they pretty much ditched their old-fashioned forwards-based style for a chucking it around like Bristol style. But I think the basic argument is they don't have the players to do that, and they just chuck it around all over the place. And yes, Will Joseph looks like a real live wire. He looks good, but then there's a lot of young players in their back line. They're getting Redshaw in there. They're getting Cotgrave in the last round. Llewellyn is an okay centre. Atkinson is a 10 playing 15. Ross Byrne is looking particularly average, and it's just kind of Thomas Williams who's carrying that team, and he's probably going to leave. And then the pack is just pretty slow, to be honest. I mean, Knight, Blake, Laulala, Freddie Thomas, Alamano, Basham and Bockenham in that last round, particularly slow. Venter's okay, and on the bench there's not anything that particularly jumps out apart from Fazgabon, and he had a bit of a shocker in the last game anyway, so it's just not working. The identity seems to be a bit strange. They chuck the ball around everywhere. They're not good enough to do it. I think they need a big rethink. I think they need to go back to basics and see if they can grind their way back into this. Then let's finish with Newcastle Red Bulls, and there's not a lot to say apart from the revolution is not there yet. They're going to need a couple more seasons. They brought in Maffey from Japan, who looks the real deal. Apart from that, maybe Cruz at 9 looks decent, but a lot of it is very average. You've got players like Clark, Lee Warner, McGuigan, Palferman, Hodgson. They're all Brockleback, very, very much journeyman. They're okay players, but they're not going to be getting in any other starting pack, I don't think. And in the back line, Clark looks a bit shot, to be honest. Spencer's okay. Obentiembo wasn't wanted by Saracens for a reason, so he's not great. Connar's an okay 10. They could do with Big Arnold back at 12, who is a really good focal point, but their big challenge is to get a win and try and keep their team spirit going, because it's going to be really tough going. They're going to be bottom. Maybe Gloucester could push them at that, but I don't think they're going to be rising above bottom. So that's my take on the 10 Prem teams at the moment. Let me know where you agree, where you disagree, and I'll catch you next time.